fat finger that so it's now going on. My finger twitched.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Linda, Mark,
Doing good here. I think we got some good attendance.
My other paper.
You may.
I don't think Cheryl's coming today for Chairman's Foreman, so is Dave Fieldman on Monday?
Yes.
And then
I have my speakers on mute.
is Eddie Moore or Jeff Martinovich on?
I don't see John.
Microphone.
Those 12 are on them. I just don't know.
Or even
Down,
just, but
down at the
usually you
bottom
still.
right corner.
Oh, come on now.
I had LASIK last year, so I have an advantage.
I have my contact.
I can see pretty well.
I dropped
did
the
you?
paper when I was walking up here.
What a difference, probably.
Sitting on the ground downstairs. That's not bigger than the new time. Sir, how are you? Good, Dave.
There's somebody down there that you can call.
It's somewhere between there and here now. I dropped them on the way up. And I don't think they're ready.
The only one that we don't know is Sheriff's Office.
Do you see Eddie Moore on there?
I will.
And what, no,
Jeff
like
Martin.
about just, what about Jeff?
There he is.
There he is. Okay.
So the only one we don't have is the Sheriff's Office.
All right, I'm going to start. Okay. The time being 2 p.m. November 17, 2020, I'm going to call this special call meeting of the Police Records Management System Oversight Committee to order pursuant to Executive Order 2020-07 issued March 16, 2020 during the duration of the COVID-19 gubernatorial disaster proclamation. The provisions of the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120 requiring or relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body are suspended. Specifically, the conditions in 5 ILCS 120/7 limiting when remote participation is permitted are suspended. Under subsection E of that statute, the governor has issued a disaster declaration related to public health concerns because of the disaster as defined in section 4 of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act, and all or part of the jurisdiction of the public body is covered by the disaster area. And also I've determined that an in-person meeting or a meeting conducted under the Open Meetings Act is not practical or prudent because of this disaster. So we will proceed accordingly. And let's start with a roll call, please.
Berlin,
Here.
Bloom,
here.
Cronin, Fieldman,
Here.
Prms,
Present.
Jinnix,
Here.
Martinovich,
Here.
Mendrick, Galera,
Here.
Vesta,
Here.
Zerwin.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, all right, we have a quorum. On to the order of agenda item number 3, chairman's remarks. The only thing I want to do is thank all of you during these challenging times. It's when it comes to public safety, everyone continues to step up. And public safety aspect in this county certainly has not suffered. So thank you to all of you for your commitment. We will move on to item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes. And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Erwin, I'll make a second.
Gen X.
We have a motion and a second, and then we have to do a roll.
Yes.
We have to do a roll call vote.
Berlin,
Yes, aye.
Bloom. Bloom,
Aye.
Cronin, Feldman,
Yes.
Prms,
Yes.
Genix,
Yes.
Martinovich,
Yes.
Hendrick, Scalera,
Yes.
Busta,
Yes.
Zerwin.
Yes.
All right, the minutes are approved. I neglected to ask, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, there being no public comment, the minutes being approved, we will move on to item number 6, which is the 2021 budget for ERMS operations and equipment replacement funds. And I would open up for discussion on this item. If anyone wants to start.
Why don't I give a brief introduction? So the last meeting, we had talked about the 2021 budget, which is the budget, the county budget starting on December 1st. And during the subsequent discussion, we talked about not only the operations budget, but the equipment replacement budget and how we were looking at capital and other costs going forward. So there was obviously a discussion, I think you all remember, and we wanted to try and get one document put together that summarized where we were, and Dave spent a lot of time on it. Obviously, you all know, trying to boil something down to a understandable one understandable document took some time. So I appreciate everybody giving us the time to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Dave walk through the memo, and however Dave wants to do questions. I don't know if we go, it doesn't matter to me, but I'll let Dave kind of handle that, or the chairman, however you guys want to handle it. But without further ado, Dave, why don't you start and walk us through your work.
Okay, I'm going to go on and share my screen so that we can, you can see what I'm referring to.
You know, if somebody has a question, I think while you're going through it, Dave, just raise your hand or speak up to be acknowledged. I think it's better that way. Go ahead.
Yeah, speak up because I may not trying to get everything on my small screen. Okay, so as Don said, I tried to boil everything down into a memo that wasn't a book, but a memo. And what you have on your screen there, actually we'll go to the right tab. I emailed this out to all the members last week, or maybe the week before, I don't remember exactly when I sent it to you. So that you had time to review this and see. And I just wanted to walk through you. I don't want to belabor it, kill it here. But the first tab that you see there in your spreadsheet, when you have the spreadsheets, is your basically it's the overall system cost projection budget for FY21. That's this column here. Based off of our discussions at our last meeting. And by the way, this is pretty much the same information we gave you in the last meeting as far as FY21 goes. There was some adjustments in some of the numbers, but I just put it into a little bit different format, into a spreadsheet for you so I can manipulate it. And as we discussed, the three biggest expenses are going to be our salary expenses. our maintenance expense, which is here. And then we also have our equipment replacement fund, which is down here at the bottom. We'll discuss equipment replacement in a little further detail in a minute. So basically, the second spreadsheet we have here, this is the DuPage PRMS operating system cost. The DuPage PRMS, this is the expense that's incurred by the county. This is what was submitted through county IT's budget to the board for approval. You'll notice that we have about a 1% increase total, and the budget kind of explains that in a little more detail. The biggest line item that we added into this is a $10,000 budget, $10,000 for staff development. That development is for training on the system throughout the year. We have it. All of our staff have been past their 6-month probation period, but I'd like to get them some more time with Hexagon. So I added that in there as budgeted item. All of this cost here is reflected in the main spreadsheet up here at the top. What's added in here though is we add benefits in here. We do the county IT budget. We don't have benefits in this spreadsheet here. So the benefits are added into here, which still brings us up to about a 1% increase.
Dave, can I interrupt for 1 second? The reason benefits aren't in the operations budget is just the way the county does it. The county budgets benefits in one fund. Is it right, Jeff? Is that the correct terminology? I think it is, but anyway.
One accounting unit, yeah.
One accounting unit, yeah, one AU. So it's just not. That's why we have to do it a little bit differently. So that just an explanation.
All right. Thank you, Don. One thing I will point out here as far as the salary expenses, just so everybody's aware, these salary expenses include a 2% cost of living, which as of right now, I'm not sure if the county is going to be pushing through the COLA. So this number actually might be the actuals on this might be lower. However, the county, I believe the county is not doing COLA at the moment. But we left it at with the COLA in there just in case they go back and reverse and add it back in later on. The next section here in this spreadsheet is really kind of the system cost for us. I did, based off of our discussion at our last meeting, I went back and I put the RSA cost for the RSA in here. Last time I think it was October when we looked at this, I left that out. But I put that back in here just to be a little more aggressive budgeting wise. This is the Illinois NIBRS cost, which is the NIBRS interface. The state's transitioning to NIBRS. It's crime reporting, statistical reporting to the state. We do have, I did receive an invoice from Hexagon for this. That's the actual cost on for the NIBRS. And we did push back on Hexagon, find out what was included in that cost, and that cost includes the software itself, implementation services, and the interface with the state. We are not paying Hexagon for any development work. They're doing that all on their own. This would be our cost or any other agency that was purchasing this interface through them would be paying this cost here.
Hey, Dave, 1 second on the NIBRS thing, just so you know, Aurora is in the same position that we are, and we did reach out to Aurora to see if there, just a discussion between us and with Hexagon to see if there was any way that we could share that cost or cut that cost, but it is a cost that each agency in Illinois will have to pay for NIBRS regardless going forward. So it's not like Dave said, just the important point is we're not paying for the development and then everybody else is getting it for next to nothing or for free. So I just wanted you to know that we did some due diligence there, and there just isn't anything, there's nothing there in terms of a shared cost that we could share.
All right, the next number here is this $51,000. That's a budgetary number for the on-call analytics. We discussed this at our last meeting, so I included it in here. We'll have to make a decision on on-call analytics if we want to move forward with that or not. We've got some preliminary information from Hexagon as we've seen a demo of it, that type of stuff, but we'll need to make a decision The NIBRS reporting tool is something that we're gonna have to do. That's not something that's optional. With the state transitioning to NIBRS reporting, they will no longer, once they pull I think it's through December 2022, all agencies have to report NIBRS. They can't report UCR anymore. So that is a cost that we're gonna have to incur. The RSA and the on-call analytics are something we need to discuss if we want to move forward, but I included them in the budget so that they're at least accounted for here. The last two costs are basically your maintenance costs and maintenance on our current UCR reporting system there. So if we include all of this cost here, we're looking at this section here, the 25% increase over what we did last year. The 25% basically coming from the NIBRS and the on-call analytics for you. Now we get down to the equipment replacement. We have the $400,000 here, and I'll come back to equipment replacement here in a minute because that's a big chunk of the memo here. But in total, we're looking at a per user cost of $992 a person. That's about an 11% increase. In the packet there is an agency cost breakdown, which will give you basically all the line, each agency, just an estimate based off of the user count. This user count was taken in November of last year. That's the last time we invoiced. We will be going back to the agencies here shortly to have them kind of verify and kind of certify that these are their active numbers. So these numbers will fluctuate. If they fluctuate for an agency, obviously that's going to change the agency's overall cost.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Dave, so looking at that $992 that's projected per user, do you know what the original budget projection was per user? My concern is agencies have budgeted out several years for this, and if we're starting to get 11% increases over what was expected, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, reasonably so. Do you know what we figured the FY 2021 cost per user was going to be?
I don't have it off the top of that, on my fingertips, but I can get that for you though.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
Or Chief Estes.
No, that's fine. I was just going to mention, I know most of the agencies, while we do annual budgets or 5-year CIP budgets, we kind of all planned for what our next 3 to 5 years of costs were. And I was just wondering how that compared.
Yeah, I'll pull that up for you. I had to go back through all the paperwork because a lot of that came from the original spreadsheets that were done probably 3 or 4 years ago. I can pull that up for you. In the memo here, basically the next thing we need to talk about is this equipment replacement. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's Dave Fieldman. Before we go there, if it's all right with the chair, could I zero in on a couple of questions on that section of the spreadsheet we just talked about? So there's a $169,000 increase, 25%. If you look at that section of the spreadsheet, and I understand that the NIBRS is basically an unfunded mandate, an increase of 68,000 and some change. So that's a pretty good chunk of it. But the rest of it sounded like we may have some discretion, and maybe we should have a discussion about the value for these extra items. Particularly of concern to me are this on-call analytics for 51,000. And I'd like to understand better what we get for that and why we would all want to pay for that. And then maybe an explanation of why maintenance costs would jump by so much in 1 year. And then if we still have time after that, third thing would be this RSA contract, which I think everybody on the call knows I've been very skeptical about paying $250,000 a year for this service. So maybe we could review those three things. What is the value of paying $51,000? What do we get for our $51,000 or on-call analytics? Why did the maintenance go up by 45 grand? And can we relook at RSA? My mic was on, right?
yes, it was.
Dave, why don't you start with on-call and let's work through it.
All right. Well, on-call analytics, we are in a spot. We purchased through the contractor Hexagon BI reporting. BI has its limitations. Now that we're into the system and we're using it, it has its limitations. Also, when I say limitations, I mean there are reports that we just can't write because of the way it's configured. And it's not, in this kind of the second part of that is Hexagon no longer has the ability to work with us on getting these reports that we needed through BI because they are no longer contracting. They don't have licensing with basically the vendor behind BI, the third-party vendor SAP behind it. So we're at a spot now where we can pull, but it's not giving the agencies everything that they need. For example, currently we cannot produce a report that lists all juvenile arrests because the BI, the way it's done in the back end, does not have access to the juvenile arrest data in the system. We've gone back with Hexagon with that, and they've said that they cannot do it for us because they don't have the licensing with SAP to do it. So it's leaving us in a gap, with the gap, and there's a couple areas like that. This is something that's also affecting the CAD side as well, so we're kind of handicapped there. The on-call analytics is built on newer technology. It's SSRS, and I've seen a demo of it, and it's much more customizable. It has access to all the data elements that we need. It also provides a dashboard where the agencies and the chiefs and all the people of the agencies can then go in to this dashboard and either use the reports that we build for them, or they can build on the fly and on-demand reports. So it's not something that, it's not like NIBRS where we have to do it. It's something that would be up to us if we move forward, understanding that we don't have to, obviously we're not making a decision on call analytics right this second. I can dive deeper into those issues and kind of detail those out for you and bring those back so that you better understand that. I can also look at either engaging the chiefs or some of the users on our side to have them actually look at on-call analytics to see if it's something that from a user or from an agency standpoint that they would actually want. That was kind of my next step in that, going down that path, and seeing if the agencies think it's a value or not.
Dave,
So
go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so I understand pretty clearly at the policymaking level that the report writing is not up to anybody's expectations. My chief has told me that many, many times, and I've experienced it personally. I've requested 10 or 15 different reports. You can imagine in the current time, lots of questions from the public about policing and numbers. And frankly, I've never received a report that was up to my expectations. I've gotten piles and piles of paper that I cannot understand. And when Downers had our previous system, I was able to get those reports myself with a click of a button. I don't want to pay $51,000 more because the original system never came close to meeting our expectations. My expectation is that Hexagon gives us a system that produces reports that we've always wanted and always been asking for. I don't want to pay $51,000 more to meet our original expectations. How can we make that happen?
I'm going to step in and just say, I certainly share your frustration. And there's one thing that I do know. Reporting is probably one of the biggest things that we do with the system. And I think we would all agree with that. The product that came with the original build, I think is an inferior product. It's not good. Cutting through the bull, it's not a good product. If you can't get at the data that's in the back end, it's obviously problematic. So this is their fix. I don't know. We'll have to think about if there's anything there. Maybe Linda can help me. Is there a credit? Is there anything like that? I don't know what's still out there that way. And I know Linda on the CAD side shares that frustration too with the product. I know from a technology perspective, The Microsoft, I know Dave said SSRS. I'm sure you all know what that means. That's the Microsoft SQL reporting services tool. That is our standard tool at the county. That's what we use. That's what I would have expected to come with the original package, but it didn't. That's what they had was an SAP product that apparently they're seeing frustration with, and they're getting rid of it. So we're kind of stuck a little bit, but maybe there's some wiggle room, Dave, and I think we'll push on that. But I do think we need to go in that direction. How we get it is maybe is another question.
How about they drop the RSA contract price by 51,000, and then I'm happy on both ends.
we could negotiate and throw that out in a negotiation.
I'm not really kidding. That charge out rate I think has
no.
been ridiculous for a long time, and I think that they should. Look, we spend literally millions and millions of dollars on a system that can't produce what I had locally, not even close. And from my user end perspective, this system is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I just keep seeing double-digit increases, and I'm really frustrated. And I expect more out of our team to get us a product that actually works. Sorry for the frustration.
Chairman Berlin, can I ask one follow-up question related to that? Don and Dave, the RSA contract that we're talking about, if I remember correctly, that was for a year. Maybe I'm forgetting.
That's correct.
So when are we set? When's the renewal time? And have we already decided that we're going to need it for another year, and that's why it's in the budget in its totality?
That's a great question, and Brad Bloom was steadfast in this, and I think all of you were. We had anticipated this would be a 1-year deal to kind of get us over the hump. What we've seen in practice is that it is almost, I don't want to, I'm going to say it, it's necessary. It's necessary. It's something that also Linda and I are talking about. Is there a way that we could share it where she could get some CAD, some use out of it on the CAD side? We can get some use out of it on the RMS side. What we're finding is that vendor management piece of managing Hexagon is a much bigger lift and more difficult than we knew. And what this position does mainly is handles that vendor management piece. So the upgrades and issues that are going on are handled there rather than our guys that are really in the guts of the system and making it work day to day. We can do it without it. There's no doubt. It's an option. We could take it out, but I think we'll suffer for it. Linda, do you want to expand a little bit? Because Linda knows a lot about it as well. And I don't want to put her on the spot, but she knows about it.
So first I would say that the CAD part is functioning fine. Where we see the struggle is in the field-based reporting, at the user end for the police officers. I think that's the part where when you as managers are getting feedback, you're hearing that as CAD, and it's not necessarily the CAD itself. It's the field-based reporting component or an MPS issue. And as you know, we've had some network connectivity issues. So Don and I have been looking at a way to split some of those costs, because some of the things that we see are in those updates and release, and as you said, in the managing of the system. And those are things that ETSB and the portions that we cover in the contract have to deal with too. And frankly, we run lean on staffing. So having that person share that person and do all of those things for the whole system is probably a cleaner way to do it. I sent Dave and Don an email on when we sent you the letters of intent. The user costs were defined as, hold on a second. I had it right here on my screen before I sent it. The user costs for the first year, we had fiscal years, but for the first year of the system was $753 per user, $768, $784, $800, and $818. That's when the contract was 5 years. So we are incrementally increasing. To answer Dave Fieldman's question on why we see that increase in the operating, if we purchase the things that are in the budget, those are the corresponding maintenance costs, which are high. And and it is sticker shock compared to what we paid for with the Motorola product for many, many years. But again, that was a 10-year-old product. So it's not inconsistent with what we see in other, which it's not inconsistent with what we saw in the bidding for the other products that we were looking at. What else am I supposed to answer?
I guess my follow-up question would be, is it time to look at alternatives to this RSA contract? I mean, you can hire 3 full-time people for that cost. Is it time to transition to a different model to manage? I mean, we've got a vendor that has about $4.5 million total cost for the software, $500,000 for maintenance costs every year, and now he's guaranteed $250,000 in terms of personnel costs every year. I mean, I just feel like we're being kind of pushed around a little bit. Is there an alternative way to provide this service that doesn't always go through the vendor?
Don and I were looking at that, and I think that there's a couple things to consider here. One is that you're 18 months away from, assuming we're going to continue with this contract based on the contract amendment we did, we're 18 months away from the new platform. So one of the things we could think about in terms of this RSA cost too, as well, is there's preparation. It took us from 2016 to last year to configure everything and go live on what we have today. It's going to take us at least 18 months to start prepping for this next lift. And I would say, based on what we know today and know now, that an RSA on board would be beneficial. And we can look at the scope of work in terms of that and work with the state's attorney to see how much of that can be covered under the ETSB contract. I realize it's the same pair of pants, different pocket, Mark. But we did put the whole budgetary number in the ETSB budget, because we always pay it first and then get reimbursed. So there, it's already in the budgetary number in the ETSB budget. So their new platform is supposed to be better, and much more rock solid. And part of what we're struggling with here is having them develop things for a product they're trying to move off of and that they're not selling to their potential customers today. So it may be better to consider just starting to build and address the things that you're all unhappy about in the new move, and take that 18 months to get there or less. I mean, that was when it was scheduled. If we're ready to go, we could move sooner. Just my thoughts.
Okay, thank you for those answers.
Also, to address Dave Fieldman's, I think there's Dave Fieldman's questions. I think there's, a real, just a common sense way to say this, and I'm going to say it. Had we known that an RSA would be necessary at the beginning of the project, we would have baked that cost into the numbers and had that, obviously discussed it with everybody. But I think, I'm not blaming Hexagon, but I think it was, Linda and I put a lot of thought into the staffing model that was sent to us. We had discussions on the phone with them, the numbers of people, what the people would do, what they'd be called. We've redone that a little bit, but had we known, and what we know now is a lot of their customers, more than half of their customers, use RSAs. Many of them use RSAs to run the entire system. And I think what we did is, we tried to be conservative in cost and keep the numbers down, and didn't know what we get out of that RSA. And I think what we found is that the RSA is useful. It's a lot of money. I get it. It's crazy in a sense, but that's what everybody pays. It just is a cost in doing business with them. And I can't say it any other way other than plainly, had we known, we would have recommended it, and we would have been at the same place we are now, other than being surprised by it. But I just want to say that's just, I just wish we had baked that in at the beginning, and we didn't. So here we are.
I have a follow-up question that Linda, with the discussion regarding we're eligible for an upgrade to their new system, it would probably be beneficial if in a very soon timeframe, they could show us what that system looks like if we even want to consider going that, or do we want to consider other options? Can they give a demonstration of what we would be looking forward to and what the upgraded capabilities would be that we would even want to consider an RSA? Because I got to say right now, just the heavy lift, people are already frustrated with the system. Asking them to pay for that additional stuff is going to be problematic, I know.
Are you saying paying for the additional stuff that's in the budget or the move to the new platform?
Well, not.
I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But it sounds like in the 5-year projection, we were supposed to be in the $800 range, and now we're at almost $200 more a user than what we thought due to a number of things, RSA, NIBRs, on-call, if we include all that. I guess what I'm just inquiring is, if we're looking at 18 months from now going to their latest and greatest upgrade, if we're considering using the RSA to get ready for that, shouldn't they be showing us that system right now to say, this is what you're going to get? Otherwise, it's difficult to get behind that RSA for another year if it's just going to be, if we're sticking with this same system.
Yes, the short answer is yes. Some staff have seen it. I don't, Dave would have to answer on the RMS side if he's seen the on-call product from there.
We have not, other than, well, they've rebranded WebRMS on call. But at the FBR side, we have not seen it.
Can I just jump in and build on what Chief Vesta is saying? I think this is a very real concern. And in my sort of village manager brain, I think what's happening here is costs for this product keep going up in ways that we never anticipated. And the product keeps continuing to meet our expectations in terms of performance. And the way we're going to address that is use the same company to pay them more money for a new system. Why would we do that? How about the system we bought starts to meet our expectations for the budget we started with before we start talking about spending more money to fix problems we didn't expect in the first place?
Yeah, the question I have is, how confident are we that the number of users is going to remain static? We're making a decision here based on the cost per user. We don't know how many users we have in the system. It could be more and it could be less. If it's less, we're looking at a huge increase in cost per user.
The total active user count that we used for this was the one that we used from last year for invoicing. It stays pretty steady.
But that's a year ago.
Yes,
Brad,
sir.
would you expect a swing one way or another? I mean, I don't know how we would. Nobody's dropped out or joined in.
I don't know. I would just like some certainty before we make this decision that the number of users are static. I don't know if we've got a department who's thinking about going away from the system. Is that even a possibility?
For all of us to do that?
Right.
Yeah, I mean it is, and it's there's a natural discussion point, down the road. I think 2026, Linda, is that correct on when we have the kind of that jumping off point, or Linda and or Dave? I think that's the year.
I think you have an option in 18 months, and a couple of meetings ago, there was some consensus, I think, because things were going okay, I don't know, that you wanted to go with the renewal because we've made some budgetary assumptions based on that. If you're changing your mind, you can, but I would tell you that 18 months to try to move to something else would be challenging. I think what would happen is if you decided not to go with the option to renew on the RMS side, that you would have to have a maintenance contract for a certain period of time until you procured and deployed something else.
I'm just thinking that you know, if we raise the prices 10% or 11%, it raises the question by many agencies are what are our options? And agencies that leave increase the cost for everyone who stays.
It's true. I do think though I mean, in my experience in terms of procurement of a system this large, and this obviously including this system, I think it's at least 24 months you'd have to be looking out to get requirements analysis, requirements definition, requirements analysis, RFP selection process, and get implemented. I mean, that would still be a challenge, as Linda put it. I think it'd be really difficult. So I think, I mean, in my mind, and I'm not using the village manager mentality right now that Dave Fieldman was talking about. I think we have to get it as good as we can for the renewal, and then let's, you know, see what happens there. I think to Dave Fieldman's point, yeah, I'm you know, all of us are frustrated with some of the things that have happened with the system, you know, but it's super difficult when they're switching out, you know, BI products and saying, well, we're not using this, we're using that, you know, to get it for free. Now we can, you know, what we can offset that with, there may be some things there. Can they cut down that, you know, cut down on that RSA cost? Maybe. But Linda and I are also looking at an RSA option that's not from Hexagon. So that wouldn't, there'd be no play there. But there are not, that's the only option that there's only one option that we've found. That's an agency that can actually support Hexagon products outside of Hexagon. And we still haven't really firmed up what pricing and really what pricing would look like from them. So it is a kind of a tenuous spot. I get that.
So my 2 cents on this is we are struggling with credibility for our own teammates and users of the system. And they're looking at the oversight committee to provide some direction. The direction I'm looking for here is for the team, our team, Hexagon, everybody involved, is to start delivering a product that meets our expectations without increasing our costs by double digits. I think that's a very reasonable thing to ask. And I think somebody should sit down with Hexagon and understand what our position is here. We keep coming up with issues that we keep using the word frustrated. It doesn't meet our expectations, and their solution is always that we pay more money. Let's rent one of their workers for $250,000 a year. Let's spend $50,000 to get reports that actually thought we were getting in the first place. If we as an oversight group can't find a way to deliver a product that we all want and all thought we were getting within the original budget, of course people are going to drop off. Of course people are going to lose faith in this oversight committee, in this staff team, everybody involved. We have to provide the value. I can't imagine coming to my council with new projects and products that are double-digit inflation cost every year and above budget, and we continue to say it's frustrating. I don't think it flies here in Downers. I don't think it flies in the other towns, and it certainly doesn't fly on this project. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not prepared to vote in favor of a double-digit budget increase on a product that's not meeting our expectation. One of those things I think I could stomach. Double digits on a product that does meet our expectations, you know, that'd be great. Or hold the price until it does, you know, if it's not meeting our expectation, okay, maybe we can talk. But both of those things, not meeting our expectation, double-digit price increase is untenable for me. I'll be voting no on this budget.
I have a question for my own understanding. When we say the product isn't meeting expectations, is there a mass amount of communities that are complaining that it's not meeting expectations or it's just not working? Because I don't know, Don, are you hearing that?
I'll let Dave respond to on the RMS side.
Well, we did a survey back when we were going through the final approval thing. trying to do the final, approve the final milestone. At that point, the survey results were positive. I do hear quite a few complaints, different agencies complaining. I don't hear from a lot of agencies. I don't hear from a lot. I do hear agencies that like the system. So overall, it's a mixed bag as to the response to the system. I do work with the Chiefs Command Group, who has expressed their displeasure, their unhappiness with the system. We've been meeting with them and Hexagon's vice president and basically her boss too in the past couple of months. And we're continuing to do that to get some of the issues addressed and fixed. So we are working on trying to make the system better. As far as what the percentage of people who do like it or don't like it, I don't have a real good gauge on that. We can readdress the survey like we did before. There's other avenues we can find out if we can get the responses back from. But it's really kind of a mixed bag. But I do hear quite a few agencies from agencies that, especially from a user side, from a user standpoint, the frustration level is there.
Isn't that frustration level shared by Don and Dave? I think we've heard that at the last 3 meetings, right?
Well, absolutely. But, you know, and again, we're kind of, I hate to say this, but I feel like we're kind of stuck in the middle of this. We're not a Hexagon advocate. We're an advocate for the county and the user group. But on the other hand, we also talk to the vendor quite a bit. We try and manage the system certainly as best we can. This is a huge system, much larger than anything that exists, I think, in Hexagon's universe, as far as I think from what we've heard. It's a countywide system that's complex and complicated. And I think, you know, we're frustrated. It's difficult to come to them and say, because this was the conversation I had with them a year ago. We want the RSA and we don't want to pay for it. No, you're not getting an RSA. I mean, that's pretty much how it went. There isn't a whole lot of room for them because they have, I think, an employee that they have to get and assign to us and pay. And I think in their mind, you know, they're saying, well, if they wanted an RSA when this thing started, they should have had an RSA. Well, I would disagree that it was really made clear to us at that point that would have been where we needed to go with this. But whatever, there we are. We did it for a year. If we don't do it going forward, I think we will suffer. I do. I believe that I think it's going to be more difficult on us to manage the vendor than it is now, than it is with one. We certainly share the frustration, but I think we feel like we're kind of caught in the middle where, you know, someone says to us, hey, I want this, and just go get it. And we say to Hexagon, okay, we want this. And Hexagon says, well, no, I don't, you know, what, you know, you don't like the system. You don't like what? I think they also know it's difficult for us to get out of this. I think they got to know it. So to the extent that we can push them, force them, kick them, I don't know. It's frustrating for us in a couple of different ways.
Hey, can you comment? I just saw a memo recently. Chief Flint had sent out to the chiefs about a number of patches and fixes, some issues that have been taken care of. Is there, I mean, are we making progress?
Well, it's, you know, one step forward, 2 steps back sometimes, to be honest with you. We are making progress, and that's one of the focuses of the chiefs, the command focus group with Hexagon, is to get progress on these outstanding issues. Hexagon's done a lot of work for us as far as, especially when back at the beginning of the year, Hexagon went through and made a lot of usability upgrades, changes. Hexagon's pretty much accomplished most all of those. Now we're in technical issues. We've struggled big time, a lot with doing all these upgrades that we've done, which has made the system kind of, you know, every 3 to 4 months we're changing things. But we are working through a list. We have a list of they call them P2s, priority 2 tickets, and between the chiefs group and Hexagon's executives and getting Hexagon to give us deliverable dates and getting those things. In the past 2 weeks, we've pushed out three patches to take care of some issues. The chiefs have expressed some concern about issues that have been ongoing since basically, since we cut over. So we're diving into those issues. I'm diving into our tickets from our users and tickets with Hexagon to go through those and work through those. So there is progress happening, but from a user standpoint, they just want the system to work. I don't know if that answered the question.
Dave, can I ask a question? Why can't we find someone to the level of expertise from the RSA person and hire them on staff? I mean, it seems like we're almost paying a premium to Hexagon for this RSA position. Is it possible that we could hire someone based on the qualifications that Hexagon uses and have that person on staff for a much lower cost?
The issue that I'm finding is now, when we did the RSA originally, we had just had our database administrator had just left, and our staffing levels hadn't ramped up. Now we have staff in place, and a lot of the responsibility, a lot of the things we've been working on the past 4 or 5 months to kind of move away from the RSA, move those responsibilities over to our staff that we currently have. And we have a system administrator and a database administrator and a report writer, but the database administrator and system administrator do most of the support for the system internally. One thing I've noticed, which is frustrating on our part, is the RSA has direct access internally with Hexagon to their staff, to their different developers and their core engineers. So when we work with the RSA, and this is where the RSA is most beneficial for us, is the RSA they have internal tools that they do that they don't give the customers. He's got a complete different knowledge set internally, because he works within Hexagon from a vendor standpoint, than any of our staff ever will. We're developing some of it on our own. He's teaching us some of that stuff, but there are some things that we can't do because we don't have that access internally. Now, can that be done by, I think if we looked at another third-party vendor to come in here who's got that relationship with Hexagon, I think there might be somebody else out there that could do that. We could develop that, but I don't think we'll ever get to that technical knowledge level of the actual Hexagon employee, just because I think Hexagon, they design it so you don't. They keep some of that stuff internally because it's proprietary and all that jazz, all that stuff. So I don't think we can never get to that level of the RSA as far as expertise knowledge.
Well, Brad, and you had a lot of questions when we did when we hired the RSA,
right?
And I get that. I mean, I was kind of in that same boat that you were with. Okay, well, we're getting these technical qualifications, and those qualifications are out there on the open market. What we found is exactly what Dave said. What we really got with it was more of a conduit and someone to handle vendor management than we did on the tech side, because we're managing our own database. We're patching, we're doing those things. Now the RSA does assist with a lot of that, but like Dave said, it's those internal tools, those relationships that we don't have. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm just going to say it. I think it's a little crappy on Hexagon's part that they have a program kind of like that, but it seems that for some reason that's the way a lot of their clients have chosen to go with. We're going to have RSAs and they're going to run the system. And again, looking back, had we known, I would have recommended having it from the start and baked it into the contract. And at that point, maybe it could have been a different cost or it could have been better, but believe me, Hexagon wasn't saying you have to do it, and we're recommending it. And as Linda knows too, we've seen some things from Hexagon that we think that maybe there's a possibility we could cut some costs And if Linda wants to talk about that, she can. If we want to move past it, whatever, cut some costs by having the RSA in terms of what we're paying Hexagon for in terms of some upgrades. So it's like Dave's, he said it before on another item, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, I agree with you, Brad, that you'd think you could go hire it, get somebody, there's these technical skills, but it's actually more than that.
I understand.
If I could just relay kind of the mood that I get also from the Chiefs Association. I know early on in this project, the county tried to be respectful with when to hire people. And I think probably not having some of those people on staff early on probably did affect the product, as far as we didn't have a report writer, we didn't have a database administrator, even though I know county IT, assisted with some additional help on that. My frustration is, I think if we're a year and 4 months into this product, had it rolled out right now, and a few of the minor connectivity issues and some of that, not as, it would be, all right, this system will be okay and we'll improve it. It's the first few months, I think, have frustrated people to a point also that when you don't get resolutions on the issues with such as report writing, it kind of makes a compound effect. And when I hear chiefs saying they wish they could go back to net RMS, it's very frustrating because we've all spent a lot of money on this. The reporting part, I think for me right now, is the most difficult part. I download stuff into Excel and do my own analytics and patrol allocation and stuff like that. And I would really like to see Hexagon step up and say, yeah, we kind of dropped the ball on this, and we really should be upgrading you to the on-call analytics. And we know there's been frustrations with our product in the past, and reduce that RSA cost for me to kind of support all this. So, but that's kind of what I'm hearing. The tough start, I think, has affected people's perceptions now, but it's just still not quite there yet.
Would it be a good idea to either sit down with Hexagon or send them a letter saying, look, these are the things we're requesting. Put a dollar amount in there, which is obviously going to be significantly less than what they're telling us, and see what their response is. And they're asking for $250 for an RSA, and maybe we offer them something less. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, I think that the combination that Dave Fieldman talked about, is it may be something that, that makes some sense to me in terms of an offer that, that we might be able to look at, combining those two items and seeing what we could do with that. That's just my 2 cents on that. That seems to make sense to me.
What's the timing on the budget approval?
Well, the operations budget, I mean the county budget where this accounting unit resides, Jeff Martinowitz, I think we could approve it with whatever caveats you want to put in there today, so that we have a budget for salaries and benefits and the things that we need to start on December 1. We could certainly have further discussion on other items. I think Jeff Martinowitz again needs to weigh in just to tell me what he thinks about that, and in terms of amending anything. And it is kind of a strange budget because it's in the county budget, but it's really made up of a majority of member contributions. So, it's one of those things I guess, Jeff, we need to get people paid and have a budget for that and that kind of thing. But as far as those other decisions, that doesn't have to be December 1, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. We have a little bit of time before we can delay the billing a couple months, and I probably get away with it. And then go back to Hexagon and try to clear up a lot of these issues that came up through this discussion. One of the things that I was going to suggest maybe is, back to Dave Jordan, is there anything in this budget as proposed that's in front of this group that can be taken out to lower the percentage increase so all the members don't have to go back to their individual boards and say, well, we got a double-digit increase for our PRMS costs? So, you know, that's kind of my thought, to kind of ease the pain a little bit. I know we have some pretty significant issues that we have to look at to appease a lot of the members. But if that's something that we can do in the interim, reduce some of these costs to bring that double-digit increase down, that could help out a lot of these members.
Oh, the RSA contract and on-call analytics are optional. If we take those out, our numbers look a lot better.
Well, I think, Jeff, are you looking at the overall contribution? Because the place you do have a lot of wiggle room, although this is a double-edged sword if you want to go with a different product, is in your equipment replacement contribution. Because remember, we talked a little bit about it being put at a certain level, but it's certainly something that could be dropped down.
So the equipment replacement as proposed is 400,000.
Right.
What are the ramifications of dropping that this year to bring down that double-digit increase? Is it something that we can do?
I think let's talk about the concept, I think. And, you know, I hate putting Linda on the spot, but if you could, Linda, just kind of outline, because you were more involved in that 2026 number than I was, and, you know, what the concept was of the replacement number, or the replacement number, and what that means if we dropped it. Because I'll just let Linda go, because she really explains it well. And I'm sorry, Linda.
That's okay. I'm glad you think I explained it well, because I know I always get Dave Fieldman and Mark Franz to give me the stink eye when I start talking money. But it basically comes down to how we divide the number to get the users to 3 million at the point that they at what we consider the end. And so I think in the last budget cycle, there was agreement that we would be doing the renewal, which allowed some window of opportunity to reduce that annual payment, right? And so I think David done a nice job of putting that spreadsheet together of some of the different options. And you know, I mean, you're all managers, so you understand this. If we drop it down later and you decide to do something else, that number is going to go up in the future. The question becomes, you know, how do we reduce it? But it is one place for now that you could do that. And, you know, if you decide to go somewhere else, you would start your procurement and know how much it's going to be, or everybody goes on their own and takes their money from that portion. And if there's that much unhappiness, that would be the place I would reduce the cost at this point, or reduce the contribution at this point. The other thing is, I think that there are, the ETS board, somewhat not in agreement, but I'll have a different board in December to educate on the fact that I think that ETSB can split some of this cost, because some of the things that the RSA is doing are things that they can be doing for us too. And Don and I have talked to Hexagon about that and sharing those responsibilities. So if we were able to take 50% of that into the ETSB budget, that would drop your budget by, you know, half of 250, whatever it is. And then certainly the add-ons are something I think you could budget for it, but obviously until it's approved by you to purchase, nothing's going to happen. But I think those are things that should be looked at if you're going to go to the next platform. Are those included, and how do they lay out? Because you certainly don't want to spend the money now for the next 18 months to be in the same situation if it's on, you know, if it's not part of the on-call product as it stands today. So there's some things we should look at before we go forward with that. And because NIBRS is part of the state of Illinois package, and we all know how quickly that moves, you know, it may or may not I don't know that it's as urgent today. And
Well, NIBRS is a 2022, right, Linda and Dave?
Yes, well, the state of Illinois is transitioning in January of 2021. They've given the agency till 2022 to do it. Hexagon, and speaking with our account manager with Hexagon, they're not going to start development of the software until we basically sign the PO on it. So that adds 6 months of development time on their back end before we would have to be able to deploy. So just keep that time frame in mind when doing it. If Aurora goes for it, to start developing when they start developing.
So no stink eye, Linda. Nice explanation. And I think we have a great policy and a great plan for equipment replacement. That's been well vetted by this group. I feel really confident in that approach. I also like where Jeff went with this idea of trying to find a way to keep the budget down so we don't have issues with the annual contribution. So perhaps we reduce the line item for something in that middle category, maybe NIBRS, because of the timing issue. Perhaps we won't expend all of those funds in 2021 is what I just heard.
Yeah, I just ran some numbers here, and I think Linda mentioned the 125,000 would be for what was that again, Linda?
RSA. So if ETSB split the RSA cost.
Okay. If we did that, that brings the total down to $1,617,534 for the overall contribution. And what I'm hearing is it looks like NIBRS can come out. That's another $68,234. That brings the total contributions to $1,549,300. That's going to be less than last year's contribution by about $21,000. So at a minimum, if we do that, the membership can go back to their boards and come back with a flat or decreased amount for PRMS costs.
But aren't we just postponing that NIBRS purchase a year? Aren't we looking at the same 11% increase then the following year? I mean, if it's not palpable now, it's not going to be palpable then.
Well, it wouldn't be 11, right, Jeff? Because you're still dropping the half of the RSA, Brad. So you'd be less than that. I don't know what the number is, but
right.
I don't know. Jeff, do you have that?
Let me run it.
If you just added that back in.
While Jeff does that, what an interesting thing it would do is if the approved bottom line budget were the numbers we're talking about, what a great negotiating tool when we go to Hexagon. I agree with everything Brad said, by the way, too. It's just kicking the can, but it might improve our negotiating position. It's important that we as a group always approve a budget that's realistic and can get us through the year. I don't want to be amending budgets. I really like what Linda said on this 125,000 split. That's fantastic. I really like the idea of only budgeting the portion of NIBRS that we're likely to spend in 2021. If it's likely that will straddle 2 fiscal years, I think we should keep the money in the local coffers, recognizing that we will have to pay it in the next year.
Yeah, I like the idea of spreading it over 2 years, the NIBRS.
Dave, does that make sense, or does it make sense that maybe I'm misunderstanding, but if you pushed it an entire year, does that work the same? I mean, is that the year we're looking at it? Or does splitting between 2021 and 22 work better? And also, both Dave and Brad, I don't know to what extent, when they would expect payment on this. Now, I would assume we could negotiate that and say, you're getting some of this now and some of it later. But I don't know what their plan is for NIBRS to say, well, you're paying 75% of it up front and then you're paying some of it. But that's splitting hairs. So I'm not going to worry about that.
Well, remember, too, that, you're always paying. ETSB is paying forward and you're
That's true.
So all of these things are in the ETSB budget, which means, if you had to go forward in NIBRS, it could happen. because we add that to our contract, right, with the change order. So it could happen, and then we work out the payment schedule once it's implemented, which is what we have been doing in the past. We're trying to get past that a little bit, which is the whole equipment replacement issue. But I think in these circumstances, that's doable. I can't see the state's attorney's face, but I'm guessing yes. It's part of our current practice. So if something came up where we had to move forward, there's money in the budget, in the ETSB budget.
One thing I'd say about the NIBRS reporting tool, I'll need a little cover with pushing that off, just because the state's really pushing their NIBRS stuff now, and all the agencies are very interested in it. I've had some conversations with the chiefs. I think the chief would understand the cost-wise. I don't know, Chief Esta, if you have a point on that, just saying we might hear have to kind of not sell it, but just if we get some pushback from the agencies, just need a little cover on that.
Yeah, I can report that back to the association too, that it will be available in time for the 2022 rollout. But I think even going into this fall, everyone was under the impression that it had to be started by 2021, and we did get that word out to everyone that it's going to be later in 2021. So I will relay that message though and kind of reiterate that our priority right now is making sure everything we need is working right now, and then we'll focus on NIBRS later in 2021.
I'd be supportive of a budget that's $125,000 less. It sounds like you don't want to jeopardize that. NIBRS, I'm fine with that. It's going to cost whatever it's going to cost. That's an unfunded mandate. But splitting that RSA contract and passing those savings on to the users, that increase won't be as significant. I'd be totally in favor of that.
And I would just reiterate that our goal is to discuss the on-call analytics. If it's a great product, I think in the end people would be willing to pay for that. But I think Hexagon probably has a little bit of responsibility to maybe even bring that down a little bit or something, because what I want to be in a year from now is a position that all these issues have been worked out. Our reporting is exactly what we expected, and we look forward to the upgrade, as opposed to a year from now saying, well, let's get a maintenance contract because half of the agencies want to leave to go somewhere else, because it will happen if it's not approved. I'm confident of that, or if it's not improved, I should say.
Dave, is the forgive me for not knowing this, is the on-call analytics product a third-party product?
It's third-party as in they're using Microsoft.
It's SSRS, but is it? I mean, they've just called it on-call. What's the deal on why they? I mean, SSRS is SSRS. So. Well,
they've developed. It's the BI. It's the dashboard stuff. They've developed it all in-house.
So they have. That's right. They have some Power BI or some other pieces in it that they've some value added. Yeah. That's not just the reporting tool from Microsoft.
And I will tell you also, the $51,000 includes, I don't know if this helps or not, but they do a swap basically for us, a swap out, where they'll swap out our BI licensing and the on-call analytics licensing. The $51,000 pretty much encompasses the configuration, the delivery services, and training. Administration training and user training. So that's what that 51,000 covers.
And I would say, Dave Fieldman, again, that's been the most frustrating part of, I think, of what we've looked at, and it needs to be improved. However, we get there.
So, Jeff, we have a number. It sounds like we're going to have a motion to amend this budget.
Yeah. If we take out the 125,000, have ETSB pick that up, we're looking at a total budget for fiscal 21 of $1,617,534, and that would be up 3% from last year. So I'll make the motion if that's okay, Chairman.
Well,
And that would equal a user cost of 921,
Well, I didn't run the user costs.
921.67.
It would follow, Jeff, that it would be the same 3%, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look on the screen there, I reduced this to 125, so it brings it down to 918.82. I did leave the NIBRs in there. If we zero that out for the year, and that drops it down. We're actually down 26 grand total, negative 2% change. If we leave that out.
Mr. Chairman, if it was appropriate for Jeff's motion, I will be seconding that if it's appropriate time for that.
wait, hold on, just before we make the motion, I just want to be clear on the 400,000. Right. For the maintenance. I'm sorry, for the equipment replacement.
Yeah, I've addressed in my memo, the budget memo, the big part of that was the equipment. Most of the memo was the equipment replacement schedule. Do you want me to go through that, what I have there? Or do you want
Just in terms of amending the budget, are we leaving that 400,000 in there? I mean, we had a discussion.
we want to reduce that?
Right.
You did. Yeah.
From my perspective, we did so much work on coming to that 400, a lot of great work over the last couple of months. I'd be in favor of keeping the replacement numbers where they're at.
Okay, so then, the amended budget will be 125,000 less. What's our number there, Jeff?
I came up at 1,617,534. I'm just doing that by chicken scratch. Dave's got the spreadsheet, so we're looking at 1,612,534. Still a 3% increase from last year. So I will make a motion to approve the PRMS budget for fiscal year 21 in the amount of $1,612,534 with a member contribution of $918.82 per member.
I'll second that.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but we had 255 in there for the RSA. We brought it down to 250. Should it be 127.5 if we're splitting it? I don't want to split hairs here, but
I'd be in favor of
Jeez, Brad.
just trying to be accurate.
Sure you are.
I was thinking we'd just print some money this afternoon and pay for it.
I just need the exact number.
You want, yeah,
Okay.
do it at, I think Brad's correct though. Just do it at Brad's,
Right.
with Brad's number, because that was the number.
1,615,034.72.
That's acceptable to the seconder. Thanks.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to amend the budget to 1,615,034.72. We need a vote on that. Roll call.
Berlin,
Aye.
Bloom,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Cronin, Fieldman,
Yes.
Prms. Prms. Jinex,
Yes.
Martinowicz,
Yes.
Mendrick, Scalera. Either. Vesta,
Yes.
Zerwin.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the budget's been amended. And now we have to approve it. Is there any further discussion on the amended budget now? There being none, then I just need a motion in a second to actually approve this amended budget, right? Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion by Philbin and second.
Second.
Okay. And then we need a roll call.
Berlin,
Aye.
Bloom,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Cronin, Fieldman,
Yes.
Prms, Janex,
Yes.
Martinowicz,
Yes.
Hendrick, Scalera, Vesta,
Yes.
Zerwin,
Yes.
all ayes.
Okay, the motion carries for the amended budget is approved. We'll move on then to item number 7, any old business? There being none, item number 8, any new business? There being none, looking for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion
Second.
And a second, I think we could do a voice vote. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The meeting is officially adjourned.